Good morning. Good morning. This is Valerie Leonard. I am the founder of Nonprofit Utopia. I want to welcome you to today's live stream. Thank you so much for taking up your time to be with us. We are going to be talking about a living testimony of resilience. And our guest for today is Vanessa McNorton. She and I graduated from high school together 3 years ago.
Yes, it was.
Well, one of those digits is right. I'll leave it at that. But at any rate, I'm sorry. I was scrolling down my Facebook feed and I saw this wonderful post from Vanessa. And it was just, it was something I really had to stop and meditate on. We're focusing on resilience in the month of March for the nonprofit Utopia community. And I think what she wrote really, really personifies what we want to address. And I want to thank also my co-hosts today. We have John Emenecker. It was John's idea to actually focus on resilience. And as a result of John's idea and developing, programming, I think we're going to have a really wonderful month. So at any rate, I just want to quote part of what what Vanessa was writing. She says, 1 year ago today, quadruple bypass surgery. Actually spent 8 hours pre-transplant taking all the EK, EEG, and more tests, passed, and no heart issues. I received a call that I received a kidney transplant on 2/20/20, a heart attack 2 days later. That's why I praise him. I get a testimony. And, for those of you who know that song, I got a testimony. I could just hear her singing that song as she was writing.
Yes.
So, yes. So she's going to tell us more about that testimony too. She's a living testimony of resilience and what a life well lived is. So Vanessa went on to write about her journey to wellness over the past year. And she also shared with us who was there for her. And I want to caution now, when you start naming names, you leave somebody out.
Always.
So charge it to just a memory lapse or just a certain focus at the time this was written and not to Vanessa's heart, right? So if you're one of those people, feel free, you can chime in and let us know, but, just know that if you've been left out, it is, not because of her heart. And her story is so powerful that, I didn't think it right to just leave it on Facebook, right? I thought it was really, really important to share with others. Her story is inspiring, and I understand at some point she'll be writing a book. But at any rate, we want to just talk about how her story of faith and mindfulness and resilience can serve as an example to those of us in our daily lives, in our professional lives. All right, so enough of that. I want to thank you so much for joining us today, Vanessa. And before we get started, can you give us a little bit of your professional background and I guess the background that brought you to us, in your resilience struggle? Give us a little bit more detail about what I just shared.
Sure. My professional background, I attended Howard University undergrad and got a degree in finance. Loved Howard. I transitioned. I was at Northern Illinois for 2 years and transitioned to Howard. So it was the best decision of my life. Decided to go into business, actually banking, because at Whitney Young, I was in the DECA Club, Distributive Education Clubs of America. And my junior and senior year, I had a part-time job at First Chicago Bank. So I was able to blessed to go back after graduation and work full-time. And I worked for the executive vice president. And I actually kind of was an intern. I toured all the different sites and worked in all the different areas and decided on branch banking. So I was a branch banking manager at First Chicago and did that 10 years.
Wow.
And then was like, there's something else I want to do. There's something else I want to do. And then I went on a wing and a prayer and decided to go into education, and started as a special ed teacher and our special needs teacher, and then became a third grade teacher and got because my salary was slashed in half. I was like, I got to decide on what I need to do. So went to St. Xavier, received my couple of master's degrees, and then I transitioned to a principal position, which I thought worked very well because I was able to get that foundation as a teacher and move up and really get a feel for just all staff, and the needs of staff. And from there, I was coaching and modeling instruction, definitely with issues that would happen in school. There were restorative justice issues. And I was kind of conflicted between the actual rules and policy, but in terms of really meeting the needs of the students and looking at empathy and compassion and not just putting a child out of the classroom,
Right.
So I went ahead and went the route of, and that was when I decided I was like, the restorative justice community really needs people that are vested in them. And that is the volunteer work I do. I do some training too with an organization a nonprofit called Nehemiah Trinity Rising. So loving that. Right before I joined the nonprofit, I actually, with the whole journey, I could go backwards. So at age 30, I was diagnosed. Well, they weren't exactly sure, University of Chicago, but then they diagnosed me with lupus. And I was having symptoms previously where I wasn't eating enough, but I was working out. I was working out like 3 times a week, doing aerobics and different activities and kickboxing. But I was starting to deteriorate. I was starting to get weak. I could tell that I was having hair loss, and went to the doctor. And then that's after 3 days, and I really couldn't even talk. There were issues of that and speaking. Wow. Yeah, I had like a mini stroke. I think in the movie Sybil, my hand, it was like that. My hand was going up and down. So it was really an interesting journey because lupus was still kind of that, we're not, it's an autoimmune, but we're not clearly sure how to treat it, unknown cure, unknown cause. And so I was in the hospital for a week, went back home. They definitely diagnosed me. And then I was able to, that was a rough period because it was more non-systemic, more skin for me instead of organs. But later, it did affect my organs. And then at 40, hanging out in New Orleans, having a good time, tinges of pain. And then I did come back home. They only lasted like 5 seconds. I had about 5 of them. Came back home, didn't sleep well that night. And I actually told my parents, I was living with them at the time, helping them out. And I said, there's something weird. Let's go to the emergency room. They're like, for what? I said, well, let's go check it out. And they said, if I hadn't come, the emergency room folks said, if I hadn't come, I might have had a massive heart attack.
Wow.
So they placed a stent. Yeah. So I was able to have the stent, go to work, like the next day, no pity party. I got to go to work,
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And then with the kidney disease, I, didn't know where that was coming from. My parents had passed, and my brother had passed. So, dealing with the caregiving issues and you don't realize how stress really impacts your body. So I'm thinking part of that was that issue too, even though I was under the care of the people at the hospital. But then they were like, your kidneys have deteriorated. You're going to need to have dialysis. And once I had dialysis, I definitely felt much better. It took about 2 to 3 weeks off or so, no longer than a month. Went back, I had the full-time job at that point, coaching. And I, just went right ahead and started back working and would have dialysis treatments. Then, since I was working full-time and working a full day, I would have my treatments at night. So I would go to the dialysis center at like 6 and would have the treatments from 6 to midnight.
Wow.
They called it nocturnal. and I would have them from 6 to 6. So all of us that were working did that, and it was said that we would have better clearance numbers and we would feel better, which we did. And they had stopped that nocturnal. And then I realized it was too much of a hectic schedule because I would, sleep maybe 4 hours or 5 hours and get up for work. And sometimes I traveled. So it was a lot, it was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ended up, and then dialysis became kind of hard on my body too. So I ended up working, just part-time and doing some volunteer work. And I ended up doing dialysis at 5 a.m. So I would get up at about 3:34 and get my dog together, who was my blessing. And I would go ahead and go to my treatments like at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I would have 4-hour treatments 4 days a week. 3 days a week. So that's kind of that journey. And then, of course, they called me for the transplant. Hallelujah. But I was on dialysis for a long time. Wow. Yeah, I was on for 10 years.
Wow.
And yeah, that's longer than most people, and that, are seeking kidneys as well, are living donors as well, too. And then they called me for the kidney. I just knew it was going to be sometime in 2020, not like once, right after 2020 began.
Right.
And yeah, my neighbors tried to call me. I was knocked out. My dog wasn't even responding. So my neighbors were knocking on my door and, like, Vanessa, come on. And then my next door neighbor, Joyce, she was like, we accept the kidney. We accept it. And they were like, that's not how it's done. Vanessa needs to physically come in. And she, they're like, but we accept it. Don't give it to anybody. So that was a blessing because there was one person ahead of me to get that kidney, but the person needed a kidney and a pancreas that matched, the same person. And I was able to get that kidney. So that kidney blessed me. They tell us that after a year, we can reach out to the family. And I'm definitely going to reach out to the family and have a conversation with them. But I ended up getting the kidney transplant. A lottery number that could be played to 2020. And that was a blessing. And then 2 days later, I was in the hospital still. You only stay 5 days because I was like, I'll be home in 5 days. And the nurse was giving me my medication and I felt weird. I felt clammy. My arms felt clammy and kind of cold. And I knew it was not normal, especially since I had that weird situation in New Orleans at 40. And I was like, this is not normal. And praise the Lord, the nurse was still in the room. And then she gave me some nitroglycerin. They ran me around to have these tests. They determined I did have a heart attack. And yeah, the issue was to save the kidney. And they were trying to, definitely protect the heart, but they needed to save that kidney, which was still kind of asleep. So I had a couple of dialysis treatments in the hospital before it woke up. And then I ended up, they're like, you got a couple of options, now COVID, when I first arrived, it was like, okay, it's out there, but it's not, we're not closing down anything. You can still have visitors. And then, everything kind of shut down and it was still a scary situation. People, doctors and nurses were still like, okay, we're not sure what's happening here. So I'm like, should I have this surgery? What are we doing? So he was like, you could go home and then we could wait, make sure the kidney is stable, or we can, he said, you're young. I'm like, I'm 50, I'm 56, that I was like, I'm not young. He's like, no, you're young. He said, let's do it, So we weighed the pros and cons and I had the quadruple bypass, which we didn't know I would have had because I did all those tests, as you had mentioned.
Wow.
So that's kind of that story in a nutshell. I kind of gave you a mouthful there.
It reminds me of Job. That is amazing. That's amazing. So John, what do you think?
Yeah, thank you for sharing your story. You faced quite a bit. You faced lupus, a heart attack, kidney disease, and other challenges in life, and you were resilient. What suggestions would you give to those watching what they could do when they're faced with adversity?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the first and foremost thing is to pray. That was my saving grace, where I just didn't just randomly prayed. I prayed specifically. I asked God, heal my body now. And I want to do A, B, and C. So I was really prayer specific for people that are prayerful, definitely that. For people that, because in the dialysis center, there's people that are just really angry, with all of this. And with the lupus, there were people very angry, very upset. But it's always good to try to find somebody to talk to. So if it's not a family member, or if it's not a good friend, those are two options, then talk to that social worker. There's social workers at the centers that people can speak with. And then, of course, support groups. So support groups, I was involved in support groups when I had lupus. So at Trinity United Church of Christ, we had a support group that we formed with the lupus group. And then I decided, hey, this unknown cure, unknown cause situation, this is, I'm like, what? I had one of my good friends, Cookie, had childhood lupus. So you're talking about as a young child, she's dealing with this. And I'm like, you have so many levels of people that are, doing very well and not doing well. So I was like, let's figure this out and let's help minorities overcome this. So definitely support groups. I joined, I was on the board of directors of the Lupus Foundation in charge of minority outreach. That's the side of my job. That wasn't part of the job. So that was volunteer work. And definitely like the Black Women's Expos. I used to help organize those, with the support group, and every year have a table, for the 3 days, the Friday through Sunday, so people can talk and look at the literature and talk about and share some of the symptoms they have and just have a discussion. So that's one of the ways, also through discussion and, just talking to people. It's important because all this gets bottled up and you're frustrated, but you can't explode, So it's, and all that stress manifests itself and it's not healthy. But I think for other people that are dealing with this and dealing with health challenges that they feel that they can't do much with, I think they definitely need to reach out for support groups, definitely reach out to their doctors. I did get on a couple of sites for the Kidney Foundation and just listen to some of the patients. And I did that like right after I finished and got my actual transplant, and just wanted to hear about the conversation. So definitely talking to people and sharing information and just stepping out on faith and just saying, hey, this is what's happening to me. You never know who you can connect with that, wants to hear your story. And if that doesn't help, then, you got to talk to the doctors and tell them how you feel. Yeah. Thank you, John, for that question.
Yeah. I was looking, at your post, and I think one of the strategies you use for coping is being grateful and acknowledging people around you who helped. You had a very long list of people. I'm not going to share all of those names, but some of the folks that jumped out and grabbed me were folks that we were in high school with. For example, there was Diane Logan, Tina Ragland, Dr. Julie Taylor, Merrill Billingsley, Santita Jackson, and Stephanie Howard Ireland. Can you share a little bit about the roles that each of those women played in your recovery?
Sure. I'll definitely start with Dr. Julie Taylor. So Julie and Julie was my line sister at Howard. She went to Indiana with me, but she became my line sister. So we were line sisters. There were 34 of us, very close-knit group even to this day. And she was really the one that talked to the doctors, she as well as Joya, and really made sure that they were treating me right. Having that voice that can speak that language, and they were making sure, if I was in pain, that I know which, if I had a pump, I can hit that pump, or if I needed more drugs, certain ones, I could tell them I need some more of A, B, and C, and this one is 12 hours, this one is 6 hours. So she and Joy were that voice for the doctors, and they checked on me. They would, after their jobs, they would come by and make sure I was okay and checked on me. Now, they made sure my house was in order, because I had I was supposed to only be gone a week. And then once I had the heart attack and had the bypass, that ended up being rehabs. So I had rehab at Shirley Ryan Ability Lab for 2 weeks. Wow. I had home rehab for 2 months, and I had 3 months of rehab at University of Chicago, walk-in, and that was group rehab. So they made sure that everything was taken care of in my house. And my dog was taken care of. My neighbor made sure that happened. Wow. And that Miles was taken care of. Miles Davis, my cocker. So they made sure he was taken care of. So they did that part. Tina Ragland was extremely instrumental, and so was Meryl in gathering items for me when I got home, like those paper goods that were in shortage. Mm-hmm. To make sure I had the toilet paper.
That's why we couldn't find any.
Yes, that's why I was like, how did she get them? But she made sure I had those essential items, and I had food in the refrigerator. So she lives all the way in Yorkville. So she and her husband drove to make sure that I had the items, and then she would visit me at home. She would visit me, at the hospital. And then Diane Logan, one of my closest friends as well, one of my buddies that calls me every day. And she made sure that I had a GoFundMe because I needed some funds when I came out because I was on disability. Mm-hmm. And she made sure that I had a little bit of, extra change, and I needed it because I needed, Mouse ended up going to a overnight, not a daycare anymore, and not with my neighbors. So he was being taken care of elsewhere. So those funds were needed for that. So she set that up.
That is awesome.
Yeah. And definitely Santita, the first day I had my transplant, she was right there. She was right at the hospital, checking on me, visiting. I've known her since kindergarten.
Wow.
Kindergarten, elementary school, we called it grammar school back then, John J. Pershing. And then Whitney Young and Howard. She pledged me at Howard. So I've known Santita Jackson for a while. So she was there. She was calling me, checking on me, praying for me. All these people, there were so many people praying for me. My good friend Chevette, who went to Hyde Park, she was just praying for me. She would play the music for me when I wasn't feeling well. So she was a blessing as well. And then, of course, Stephanie Howard Ireland, as you had mentioned, Stephanie was a true blessing. She lives in the Maryland area, and she was praying for me. I had met her mother at a gathering. Her mother doesn't live far from me. Okay. And she actually was always asking and praying. So, Stephanie was calling and praying for me, throughout the journey. So they were just totally instrumental. My neighbors, my line sisters, all my friends were just a part of this whole journey. And I felt the prayers. Because everybody was like, there were so many people praying for you.
Yeah.
Especially, they had the gladness with the kidney transplant. Then the heart attack, they were like, what? Dealing with double. This is insane. So that's when those prayers started flooding, and I felt them. Yes.
Oh, that is awesome. And before John asks his question, I just want to share this comment again from Sel Dunlap. I don't know if you saw it. You were talking. Mm-hmm. Yeah. God prefers specific petitions, not that willy-nilly shooting from the hip pontification.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you should meet Sel. He shoots from the hip.
He does. Okay.
Yeah, no black, everything is black or white, no gray.
Say straight, no chaser.
Right. Okay. That's funny, John.
Okay.
You look like you have memories, John.
You had a lot of people praying and supporting you when you were going through this. You also took a very active role, and you joined the board for the Lupus Foundation, and you've also got involved with other organizations too. How did sharing your experience on the board and also other organizations help you when it came to focusing on these challenges?
Sure. And one of the people that I just want to backtrack, I didn't mention Meryl, kind of in general, but I didn't call her out. But Meryl Billingsley has been the absolute phenomenal friend. She has been wonderful as well, definitely helping me throughout the whole journey. And even to this day, we talk on the phone, but through the journey, she would visit me at the hospital and she would just sit there and just listen. She has a very sweet, silent spirit and a very calming personality. And she was extremely helpful and a good peacemaker and a very good listener. And very helpful. She was, as well as Chevette and Diane, those key people that were strategizing to make sure that everything was working well. So in terms of me working with like the Lupus Foundation and different boards, your question was, how did that help me? I'm sorry, John.
Yeah, how did it help you with what you were experiencing, like going through lupus? And the kidney disease, the dialysis.
Yeah, so definitely with the lupus and working with people in Illinois and Chicago on those boards, it really helped me. I mean, gain knowledge. I gained a lot of knowledge. So my thing was, let me get as much knowledge and information from these key people to share it with minorities and minority communities, and to be able to talk the language and understand what it is and be able to, share in some of the symptoms and talk about the symptoms and talk about some ways for resilience and give examples and give references to places where people could go. So that was my thing, where we got to share this information. We're connected based on, having the illness, but I need to be able to be that person that can say, hey, why don't you talk to such and such doctor? Because they're fantastic. They've done great in helping me. And I've heard other people have used them. And if you're feeling this, why don't you talk to this doctor? So they were really helpful in making those connections with, letting me know what's out there and having me put more than just a label on lupus and actually figuring out what it is. With the kidney dialysis, I was instrumental in, I was one of the people that the doctors asked me to kind of like the patient care advocate. So I guess that's kind of the title that they kind of gave a few of us. They asked me if I wanted to, because when I first started, I would ask a couple of patients, hey, tell me about why you're here and what was your issue with the kidney disease. And some of them had genetic makeup. They had family history of it. So I was curious. Some people would talk to me, quite a few didn't. They didn't want to discuss it. They just wanted to do their dialysis treatment and keep moving. But I was like, we need to talk if you want to. I felt the need to kind of share and have a conversation about it so we can, because I wanted to unpack it. I wanted to kind of just get a feel for it. So my thing was, when new patients came in, I did not mind talking to them because they had a lot of questions, because I knew I did. I had tons of questions. So I didn't mind when, it was Dr. Reddy, UFC. She was like, you mind doing this? And actually the social worker as well. And I was like, sure. So definitely being that patient care advocate helped. I was part of a song initiative or institute where doctors from all over the world came. And there were a couple of us from dialysis centers that would actually sit and have conversations about dialysis and kidney disease. And they would have meetings maybe once or twice a year and have discussions. So I was definitely a part of that. So that was powerful. And, trying to really make it, quote unquote, comfortable, quote unquote, for kidney dialysis patients based on, journeying towards the future. So definitely wanted to be a part of that. And anything that was modern and innovative and anything in the future, wanted to be a part of making those changes. And, everybody's like, why are you so positive? Because there was, definitely when you're not feeling well, a lot of people are like, I'm not trying to smile. I'm not trying to show any type of anything, let alone resilience. Just
Right.
alone, I just want to be. But I'm like, I definitely, and I have a sign in my house, I think I was created for such a time as this.
Oh, I
God
love it.
richly blessed me, so I'm like, why should I not share my gifts with other people? And my faith and my church and my church friends definitely are part of that community with that perspective and mindset. Yeah, I have my pity parties just like anybody else, but I jump up and I got to take care of business. And my mindset was, I felt that if you just lay in the bed, your body's going to be ridden with toxins. And I was like, no, I got to get up, at least try to. Now, if I need to take a nap, 2 hours later, I might have to do that. But the blessing too was I have a dog, and I was like, I gotta, take him out. It was a funny story when I was at this was Shirley Ryan Ability Lab. They're like one of the best ability labs in the country and rehab centers in the country. So I was there, blessed to be able to go there, and I thought I only had to, do 5 days, like Monday through Friday. I'm like, hallelujah. My first week I had Saturday and Sunday off. They slipped the note under my door. And they were like, no, you have like 4 things, 4 appointments on Saturday. And I was like, oh my gosh. But when I got there, they said, well, what's your goal? And I'm like, well, I have 27 steps at my house. And my goal is to get up and down those steps. And when I first got there, I could only get up 5 steps. So they had like, we did so many treadmill things where they had me in the holster or something you call it. And I would walk up and down these smaller stairs. And then, I had, they had a longer set of stairs. So I was like, I want to achieve those. But we set goals. I was like, that was my resilience. I was like, I have a dog that I have to go home to. I have a house. I'm not trying to go to any rehab center if I don't have to. I don't, want to do all that. I want to be back at home, because it had been about 2 months at that point.
Wow.
And I want to be able to go up and down those stairs in my house. And that was a goal. And I achieved it after 2 weeks. Yeah. So that was a blessing. We snapped. Yeah, that was a blessing. I was able to do that. But I was like, I got to be able to walk up and down these stairs.
Okay.
And the rehab person came the next day. So I was like, don't I get a break? Can I lay down for at least 3 days?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, she was going to give you a break, all right.
Right. I was like, oh gosh. But it worked out fine.
Okay. And this is Sel Dunlap's response. I guess he heard us talking about his other comment. He said that he takes careful aim with the spiritual scope when shooting at his opposition, the devil and or Donald Trump, and like characters.
Thank you for sharing that, Sel.
Yeah, he is a wonderful guy. Wonderful. All right. So as we were talking, the other day about your situation, we also mentioned, that, Nonprofit Utopia is for nonprofit professionals, emerging leaders. And life happens. And every now and then, one of us may find ourselves in a similar situation, or even in the workplace. If we're managing someone who has significant health challenges or other things that would cause them to be resilient, or if we have colleagues, what is some of your advice that you can give that will help people create a work environment that is conducive for people to recover?
Sure. Definitely. And we talked about this a little bit, where we have to really, sometimes people put labels on folks with disabilities and they assume that they're just in this box, they're in this little box. And that is just so wrong, basically. It's awful to do that. So I think we got to really have conversations, that we're doing deep listening with the person one-on-one. Like if it was myself, where it's like, well, what is your passion? You know, what do you really want to do? And really serve the needs of the person. And then of course, fitting with the needs of the organization or the nonprofit, and really looking at growth too. You know, they have a basic skill level and they strive to achieve to a higher level. They're working with them, you know, working with them and collaborating and holding their hand so that you get to that point that, you know, everybody's searching for. But don't sell people short. Mm-hmm. And that's sometimes what people do with people with disabilities, is that they sell them short. They don't think they're capable, but definitely working and collaborating and saying, hey, you know, let's take this journey together. If this is what you want to do, if you see something in them, and helping them get to that area, showing that empathy, that compassion, that kindness, to develop people. I mean, because this world is made up of a lot of people that are disabled. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, and they're good people.
Yes.
And then you shared your story on Facebook, and other people had a chance to see what you're experiencing and able to respond. You had people supporting you, had people praying for you. And I've heard other people too who have gone through difficult situations. And just how did sharing your story help you in your life when faced with these difficult experiences?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question as well. I wasn't sure. Oh, do I have a background going? I wasn't sure if I was going to share, you know, because it's when you're on Facebook, it's just so many people that are going to see it. And then you're like, if I want to get a job later, am I going to be stereotyped and put in that box or that hole where it's like, oh, she can't do it. She's had kidney transplant, a heart attack, you know, she has all these health issues. But I was like, I don't care about that. I need people to hear it. So I'm sorry, your main question was, how did that sharing my story do what now?
Help you when it came to facing what you're going through.
Yes, so definitely me speaking it into existence helped me be able to, and I started remembering more. I realized that I was like, now I'm remembering a lot. You know, before it was like it happened, I move on. I had, even in the beginning, people kept telling me, you know, you got to write a book. This is like incredible. So I was like, yeah, you know, I'll get to it. And then I had bought some things and, you know, some little organizers and journals, and somebody kept telling me just write every day. But I, you know, didn't do it. But then I was like, I need to share this, because a lot of people that I knew, people in college and high school, had no idea, you know, all this was happening. So me doing that kind of empowered me to say, you know, I went out there when I had lupus and, you know, tried to help people, got on the board, you know, as a part-time, as a volunteer type thing, which was kind of like a part-time job. It was a lot of work, but it was good work, you know, one of those things. But it really makes you say you're put on this planet for a reason. You know, I'm here for a reason to be helpful to other people. You know, God didn't place me here just to, you know, just for my own selfish reasons. I'm placed here for a reason, and I need to put in the work. And I, you know, of course, I definitely owe it all to my parents, my, you know, Simon in Virginia, and my brother who passed away. And then I always think about also my ancestors. You know, I'm starting to trace my lineage and really connect with that. So I'm always looking at my ancestral heritage and how that connects with, you know, my ancestors prayed for me. My mother and father prayed for me. So if they were praying for me to have a better life and to do better based on how hard they fought and all the injustices and the racism that they dealt with in life just to get ahead a little bit, then I got to pick myself up and handle my business. I need to not have, long-term pity parties, and I need to get a grip, and I need to, either connect with other people, because you can do more in groups. And that's why I fight, a good fight with restorative justice practices, and working in communities and working nationally and doing things like that, because I'm like, I got more to give. If I'm not feeling in pain and I can get up every day and, I have blood running through my veins, I am grateful and blessed to be able to get up, and I need to get in action, and I need to do. So that's where that comes from. I mean, that tenacity comes from my parents, the gumption of, just spreading, just telling people your story. A lot of the work that I do with restorative justice is storytelling. And stories are powerful. A lot of people in the African-American heritage, we have a lot of stories, but some of us are ashamed of it. And the stories that we tell can be cleansing, and that's the situation, connecting with you, what you said, John, that's very cleansing for me to share my health journey. It's very cleansing. And hopefully it's helpful to other people so that they know that they can ask questions, that they have a person like myself that has learned to do some deep listening, even though I fall short sometimes, but to listen and to show that empathy.
Okay, that is awesome. And on that note, I know you mentioned the role of faith, but do you want to go a little bit deeper and share how your faith community played a role in your bouncing back?
Sure. I'd love to. I was a member of the Church of Park Manor, United Congregational Church of Park Manor. So that was my church growing up. So we definitely were, I was definitely involved in, the Sunday services every Sunday. And I was part of the choir. I played the handbells, did different things, and was part of the youth group, which was, tremendous and fun. And then switched over to United Church of Christ, Trinity United Church of Christ, with Pastor Jeremiah Wright Jr. So that church was a tremendous blessing. And it definitely formed my faith, and is a tremendous blessing, and how I view just life and how I view religion. Got involved in definitely some Bible classes and worked with the Lupus Foundation as a committee and different foundations. I was in the women's chorus, and just singing the praises of God, in a church setting and to God's people and to people was a blessing to me, very cleansing, very uplifting, and connecting with just the people. I have a group of seniors that I hang out with. We call them the brunch bunch. And, they're, definitely older than I am. Some are in their 90s,
Wow.
80s, and we go to breakfast. I go with them at least once a month. And definitely we just sit and chat. We'll sit there for hours. So I have to make sure my schedule is clear the rest of my day on Sunday. But just connecting with intergenerational people has been tremendous at Trinity also. It's made me more focused on my prayer time. I pray with my prayer partner, Charlene, and we pray every morning. And I have a prayer group that I was praying with on Saturdays. So we have, it makes me focus on my purpose and what God has done for me and how grateful I am. So it puts that in the forefront. It keeps me humble, makes me remember, God's presence is around me, and I just need to ask, and I need to be faithful, and I need to be committed. And of course, speak those words and that gospel to other people and be an example. Main thing too is to be an example, be that light. So I try to do that and try to stay, because there were so many people from my church, and I had so many different phone calls from different ministers and deacons. My mother was a deacon at Trinity. She sang in the sanctuary choir. My father was an usher. He sang in the men's chorus. So my family was extremely active at the church. And the pastor there now, Pastor Otis Moss III, Reverend Otis Moss III, has been phenomenal. And he makes a nice connection with Generation X and then, the seniors. So it's a beautiful intergenerational connection at our church. And it just, the whole actual service is just empowering. And it makes you not be complacent. It makes you say that, let's go out in the world and do something and make changes and spread the faith of Jesus, and how powerful God's love is.
Beautiful.
Yeah, faith played a very important role when it came to what you're going through. Also, we talked yesterday, and you mentioned that when you're going through dialysis, people mentioned we have kidney disease. It doesn't have us, and that kind of made me think that you talked about this before about setting your own personal goals and really thinking positively about these situations and how that helped you. Did you have any other strong positive thoughts, or what would you recommend people that are experiencing this?
Yeah, in terms of people experiencing kind of like a lull in terms of how they're feeling?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Sure. Definitely. I mean, you're going to feel it. When you have illnesses and you don't feel good, or you have a situation where it's a long-term problem, you don't have energy. I had some times when I didn't have energy and just felt like laying in that bed, and people are doing things in life and you can't do them. That happens. That's real life. That's reality. But that's when you really got to speak up or have somebody speak up for you. Write down things that you have questions about to ask doctors how you can get better. And that's the thing. You got to push these doctors too into, and asking them questions like, what can I do? This is how I'm feeling. What can we do to make me better? What else can be done? So you're really asking them questions. And then if you can't rely on, I think I had mentioned this, if you really can't rely on friends or family, that social worker is in the dialysis centers. And that social worker is a confidant. They were, that was a person that I would talk to and, just say, hey, this is where I'm at. And if she couldn't handle it, then there were other resources that they could refer me to. So you do get that lull. Some people get it a lot, some people just don't want to talk about it and just want to go through the motions of, for example, when you're having dialysis, they just want to do their dialysis and just go back to life.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I've done my time. I don't want to discuss it. I had a couple of friends actually that were like that. And then I'll come back, in every other day and I'll do that same thing and I'll go back to my life again. But there are some people that fall in that pit. Like, I've been trying to get that transplant, still hasn't come. But then when they look at other people that have got it, that's when it's like, hey, there's somebody out there that that has gotten it. And then making sure the center knows that people can reach out to those people. We had a string of us, there were about 5 or 6 of us that got them, not in a row, but like every other month. It started in December. Yeah, Zachary, and then myself in February, somebody else. So we realized it was happening. For a while there were like, nobody's getting transplants. And then it started happening. So looking and saying, it's happening to people. It can possibly happen to me if my body type and, all the doctor's things are in alignment. But then, still having hope, and then talking to people. Because when I was on the threads, the kidney threads and hearing what people were saying and looking at the words, so many people are sad. They're depressed, they're sad, understandably so. But, I just always remind them, have you exhausted all possibilities of everything? They always talk about possibly looking at other centers to have the actual transplants. If you have family that can actually go there with you if you're called. But you're looking at all opportunities. And then again, everything that can be done if you're not feeling well, asking all those questions. What else can be given? And then, just making sure you do talk to other patients, If you don't want to talk to them publicly, ask for their phone number. If you can have a conversation with them privately. But, I truly believe in just not sitting and just not saying anything, because that's not healthy for you. It's not healthy. Yeah.
I tell you, I'm listening to you, and this conversation is therapeutic for me. I haven't faced major illness, but, I've had some other situations that, have been puzzling to me, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
But from listening to you, it sounds like there are lessons to be learned in terms of, being mindful of what you're doing, having faith, having a support system.
Yes.
Making sure that you exercise and eat properly, having hope, and all of that good stuff. And you mentioned it once, but I want you to repeat it. What would you recommend to those people who don't necessarily have the same uh, network that you had to help you
Sure.
go through?
Yeah, definitely. Because, there were so many times in the beginning I felt hopeless because my immediate family passed away. So I have no immediate family. So I was like, it was saddening, So I was like, oh my gosh. But I had these wonderful friends step up. So, if you don't have family that's going to step up, you don't have friends that might step up, then, again, calling on those professionals, you got to call on the professionals that, the doctors, if it's the situation with the cardiac issue, the heart issue, calling on doctors, but asking about those support groups. Those support groups are powerful, and just like we say with the lupus support group, some people just want to sit there and listen. They don't want to talk. They just want to sit there because they, don't know what to say, or they're not sure that they can trust. They don't feel safe yet.
Right.
But there are support groups out there, and asking for a support group or taking the time to Google it if you're feeling okay to do that, or again, asking somebody at the hospital to send you information if you're not able to Google it yourself, asking them to suggest a support group to go to. So, just using your words to ask and see if somebody can give it to you. If you don't have, a family member or a friend that can help you out, definitely reaching out and asking the doctors, asking the nurse, asking a social worker that might be connected to suggest a support group. And there's a lot of online ones, there's tons of them, because I found like 2 kidney ones and I was like, oh, so, and I was listening to some of the stories. And, with University of Chicago, I used to go to all the meetings because everybody's like, do you know about this stuff? Oh, yeah, I know about all of it. Did I practice everything I need to practice? Not all the time. But I would go to the meetings at the University of Chicago and hear, the information about living donors and things of that nature. And you would hear the stories about how some people, they would leave the folks at their centers and, some issues of guilt. So having conversations just to talk about that stuff. Universities have them, different centers have them. Different centers have support group discussions. So just speaking it can help for some people, or just listening. So that's what I would suggest.
Awesome.
And you are resilient in every adversity you faced. You not only bounce back, you also bounce forward. How would you describe what it's like to bounce forward? And what would you recommend to others faced with adversity so they can bounce forward?
Sure. Definitely, we talk about bouncing forward, even in my restorative justice work. So bouncing forward really means that you're moving forward. You're, this has happened to you. You acknowledge it's happened, and you're able to move forward. Your body is able to move forward. So my thing is, if I'm able to, because there was times even when I had lupus, I was too tired. I was exhausted. I, lay in the bed and I would try to do a couple of things like wash dishes, and I could only, wash the dishes, and I was exhausted, and I had so much prednisone in my body, and the water weight was just tremendous. So and that's when exercise played that role. Of course, eating the healthy nutritional foods. So I was able to balance all that with that. And I just started working too. I immediately went back to work, and that movement helped because those toxins would have built up. But I definitely believe in terms of people bouncing forward is, if I truly believe my parents prayed so much for me for life, and my ancestors prayed for the new generations for life, that I got work to do. And I believe in other people, you got work to do. There's things in this world you need to do for such a time as this. There's more life to live, whether you have a goal to plan a trip somewhere or to buy something or do something that you want to do. So in terms of bouncing forward, definitely moving forward, from your health condition and saying, hey, let me set this goal, whether it be short-term, long-term, or immediate, like I'm going to do this tomorrow, just do it, set that goal and try to move forward. And there might be setbacks, you might be tired, a day, or you might just not feel like it. But, it's my mindset is, hey, I'm not going to just sit here and just wallow in pity and sorrow. Got to move forward. Got to keep pressing on. There's work to do out here, especially with what's happened in this world. I need to be a part of it. I need to help that next generation and be a role model for other people and work with those older generations too that have taught me. So for people, I feel the same way. There's work to be done out there, whether it's with your families, with yourself, in terms of what you want to do and achieve.
Oh my goodness. That was absolutely beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you both.
All righty. We got just a few minutes left, 3 minutes in regular time. But if there's anybody in our audience, if you have any comments, if you have any questions, please, we really want to hear from you. Don't let this good knowledge go unacknowledged. All right. If you don't do anything but clap for Vanessa, this is a wonderful story of resilience. And I just can't stress enough how helpful it's been for me. And I want to thank John Emenecker. He is a member of the nonprofit Utopia community. It's his idea that we focus on resilience, and I can't thank him enough.
Mm-hmm. And it has been very helpful for me too. I'm learning more about resilience and hearing your story and what you went through and how you faced challenging situations has been very inspirational to me. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, really appreciate you. It's powerful telling my story, very much so.
Yes. All righty. So it doesn't look like we have any questions or comments. I want to say thank you so much to everyone for taking the time out of your busy schedule and on such a beautiful Friday to be with us and to hear Vanessa's story. Vanessa, we thank you once more.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you both. It was a tremendous blessing to be, and very grateful to be here. Thank you.
All righty. And we do have a comment. Gloria Smith. Gloria. Thank you, Vanessa.
Yes. Thank you, Gloria. Thank you.
Thanks for all you do in the community, Gloria. I mean, you are a blessing to so many of us. Thank you for carrying on your brother's legacy. We'll say his name, Philip Jackson. We really appreciate him and thank you.
Thank you, Gloria.
Alrighty, so this concludes our session. You can check us out on YouTube. We'll have the video on YouTube. We hope that you can share it in your networks. And again, thank you. This is the Nonprofit Utopia live stream coming from Chicago. Thank you again, and you guys take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Everybody have a good day.